basically set up shop in properties that used to be owned by Jews before '67, before a massacre in 1929 that happened there. You have a situation in Hebron where there's about 600 Israeli civilians living in the city center of where there's 200,000 Palestinians. It's the biggest town in the West Bank, aside from East Jerusalem. There's mutual violence between both sides, starting with the Baruch Goldstein massacre of '94, when an Israeli terrorist basically decided to go inside the mosque and shoot 100 people while they were praying. The Israeli government decided that the only way to keep the Israeli civilians in Hebron safe was to create a policy of separation, was to separate the two populations. And they started implementing, especially during the Intifada that followed, pretty severe measures, including closing down all the main markets in the area, closing down the main street of the area. Even the Palestinians that live there aren't allowed to use the main street. They have to hop onto an apartment complex behind it, jump onto their building, and come down to their house, which is very hard for people who live within extended families, with their grandparents and with their little children. Extreme curfews during the Intifada, which was basically a war between both sides. I think the biggest one was 180 days straight, with only like a couple hours on the weekends to scurry out and go get resupply. And basically, what the point I'd like to make there is that you have a situation where there's two sets of civilians living side by side. What I left out was all the result of all these extreme evictions and extreme restrictions on people living in that area is it ended up in about approximately 13,000 Palestinians leaving their homes, abandoning them or being forced out. And what you have there is a situation where the Israeli government controls an area, yet prefers the well-being of 600 Israelis over 13,000 Palestinians. And that's just morally wrong. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the internal security of Israel. Now, the point I'm trying to make with all of this is there's so much stuff involved with the settlements. Let me play this in the background. This is what I got arrested doing and what I got kicked out for. This is basically a nonviolent protest where we got 300 Palestinians and about 30 Israelis to walk together completely peacefully into this, to try to walk down this main street together completely peacefully. After I got arrested from this, I was banned from, I initially wasn't deported at first, I was just banned from the city of Hebron. And I had nowhere to go except for my friend's apartment floor in Tel Aviv. And I went there and crashed on his floor, and just to leave things on a little bit of a positive note. I kind of expected, when I told his roommates and other Israelis that were living there, what I got arrested for, what I was doing, etc. I kind of expected to be jumped all over, you know. But what happened actually was when I told people, and when I told them it was 100% nonviolent protest, when I explained to them the situation behind it, that there's 13,000 people that can't live in this place so that 600 Israelis can. A lot of them were not just receptive, but a lot of them were very supportive. And that kind of cemented in my mind the fact that if you take out violence from the equation, there will be a lot of people on the Israeli left that are willing to listen and willing to support Palestinian human rights, and that it's worth appealing to those people, and a lot of good can come out of that. And especially if they realize that this is extremely negative to their own self-interest, that this fuels the conflict, that when a Palestinian sees his home being demolished and looks over there and sees an Israeli settlement on his land that's provided with electricity and roads, when a person has to worry about whether the settler is going to come over and steal my land, and instead of kicking him out, the Israeli government is going to protect him. Contrast that with, for example, if Livni had been elected and had followed through on her promise to take out all the Israeli settlement outposts. One thing, instead of protecting people who you admit are engaged in land theft, you would come and say, oh, this is illegal, we're sorry. Kick them out and actually enforce the law equally with both sides. That would go a long way. So my hope is basically to raise awareness with that through things like this. This didn't start. Like completely nonviolent protests that don't threaten someone in Tel Aviv, and maybe that'll help them, maybe that'll make them more likely to listen to some of these extreme human rights abuses that are going on. The Israelis that came out to protest games. Tear gas really sucks if you get it close up with it. And yeah, if you'd like to get involved at all. Students for Justice in Palestine meets every Thursday at 5 in SRB. Another really important group here on campus is Olive Tree Initiative, which is basically people from both sides, activists from both sides coming together and one having dialogue and planning a trip to go out there and see things for themselves. That's also extremely important. If you don't talk to the other side, you might not realize that there's things that you actually can't agree on. Before I started talking to my roommate Oren, for example, I pretty much assumed that all Israelis wanted to take all the West Bank, that they want to kick all Palestinians from their home and take all that land for themselves. And I kind of thought, if they didn't, why would they keep expanding these settlements, which obviously keep the conflict going? But things aren't that simple. Like the truth is, at least according to recent polls, and this is kind of what I've seen with my own eyes, most Israelis, that's not their main goal. They don't really care about that. They want to be able to live their own lives inside Israel itself. And on the flip side, hopefully some pro-Israeli activists here can see that there are some things that are completely unrelated to Israel's internal security that are, one, making lives extremely difficult for the average Palestinian who's just trying to go about their daily life, and gives the impression that they don't want peace. If all you see is a settler stealing your land and beating you up, and all you see is the army protecting them, that's what people are going to believe. And if you see the opposite, hopefully things can go from there. Yeah, I think that's it. Unless anybody's got any questions or anything. So.
Did you get any, or did you hear of any Palestinian or Israeli responses to Obama pressuring Netanyahu about the settlement?
That actually happened while I was out of the country, so I wouldn't know. I've heard that it was big news in Israel, and but I wouldn't know. Palestinians, their general attitude towards Obama is like, yeah, okay, he's nice, he says some nice things, but what's he doing? That's kind of my attitude as well. Like, look, it's a good thing. It's good that he's saying these things. Like, hopefully that'll get into people's heads and like people will start taking them seriously. But honestly, what I think needs to happen is put some teeth behind that. Look, if you keep defending settlers who are squatting on somebody else's land and preventing them from earning their living, if you keep defending that instead of applying your own laws, we're going to stop funding you. We're going to stop these loan guarantees. It's been done before and it's worked before. And that's kind of what I'd like to see happen.